inconvenient as a corruption scandal. My entire life had come crashing down. Fortunately, my family was there, waiting with a metaphorical broom to pick up the pieces, hugs to remind me I was loved, and my mom's famous butterscotch cupcakes to bring back my smile. I had to admit, as broken as I was feeling at the time, when my sister Lana suggested I move to Firefly Junction, I laughed it off as a crazy idea. I was a journalist, and I was hardly going to fire up my career in a small town that was only slightly more well-known than the fifth Beatle. I'll pause while you look up his name, thereby making my point. Lana had always been a gifted salesperson, and after some very persuasive emails and phone calls, I decided to pack up my stuff and my pups and move. Our mom Maggie, or Margaret as she preferred now that she had reached the venerable old age of 62, had, through no attempt or fault of her own, inherited a 50-acre property at the base of the Smoky Mountains. The dilapidated estate, which consisted of a 200-year-old manor, my new home, and 2 century-old farmhouses, had been part of a family trust for 50 years. But when the last member of the trust, my grandfather Billy, died, the property fell to my mom. She hadn't been to Firefly Junction since she was a little girl, when her family would spend 2 weeks there to watch the yearly synchronous firefly display. Lana and Mom traveled out to the property to have a realtor look at it, but Lana fell instantly in love with the scenic stretch of fields and historic buildings sandwiched between Smoky Mountain National Park and the charming town of Firefly Junction. Lana packed up her life and moved there the next year. Emily, my younger sister, followed soon after that. And now, 4 years later, I'd joined my 2 sisters for a new chapter of my life. Newman dropped the ball at my feet and hunkered down to wait for the next throw. I heaved it in the direction of Emmy and Nick's farm. Just then, a breeze ruffled the wide, waxy leaves of the tulip tree at the corner of the house. The warm wind carried the earthy odor of chickens mixed with the sweet fragrance of strawberries. Emily had texted me that she was using up the last fruit from the strawberry patch for berry tarts. I would have to make a point of walking over later for a taste test. The hammer that had been echoing intermittently through the house all morning stopped, signaling that Ursula and Henry Rice, the contractors I'd hired to help with the remodel, were stopping for lunch. I had a few things to talk to them about before I headed over to Lana's place. I turned back to the house and took a moment to admire it. When I was 10, we relocated our childhood home to the next city over. I could remember my mom saying that when she saw the new house, it just felt like home. Many thoughts ran through my head when I first laid eyes upon the Cider Ridge Inn, but feels like home wasn't one of them. The brick facade had held up through the centuries, although most of it was either stained black from mold and dirt or bleached white from weather and wind. The black shingled roof had been replaced several times in the last century, but it looked tattered and overdue for a facelift. Several of the multi-paned windows stretching across the top story had been boarded up to keep out the elements and unwanted birds. Pigeons were always the first squatters in a vacant home with broken windows. The half-circle portico supported by classic columns and jutting out over the front steps had preserved the fate of the paneled front door, which, along with the rectangular windows running along the transom, looked original to the house. Lana had been thoughtful enough to have a new front lawn of supple, tall fescue planted a month before my arrival. The neglected house couldn't help but look more inviting when surrounded by frilly green grass. The entryway was trimmed with splintery wainscoting and the last strips of a dated wallpaper. The ceiling was high enough for a grand chandelier or show-stopping light feature, but those kinds of fun details were still far in the future. Lana and Emily, overjoyed to have me live